So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Again, my name is Bobby Mann. I'm the Communications and Customer Service Manager of the Front Street Animal Shelter. I know that we all met Jean earlier, so...
You want to do that again?
No, I'm done. So I'm going to steal this section of it for a little bit to talk a little bit about us. We are not an ABC affiliate, so it's not This Is Us, but we're going to tell you a little bit about our story. So I myself really had no idea that I would be working in animal welfare in my life. I've had the privilege of working in animal shelters for over 10 years, and I really did start when I was like seven. Yeah. And it's been the greatest blessing of my life, but it's not what I thought my life would be. What my original background was actually textile design and marketing, so I went to fashion school. So that's what my life was about. I was 17, 18 years old, super materialistic, super into pretty things and learning about fashion and cars and clothes and just being a typical millennial. That was like the most important thing to me in life. I was going to fashion school, which obviously if you look at the demographic of fashion school, it's about 98% female and Bobby. And so I actually walked across the street from a textile class to go get a sandwich, and there was a gentleman standing outside with a dog. And naturally, being Indian, we're very curious people. So I walked over and I said, "What are you doing with that dog, dude?" And he looked at me and he said, "I'm going to sell this dog or I'm going to go dump it by the river." That's what he said. And I was like, well, that's not nice. Like, you shouldn't do that. And so he's like, well, I want $60 for this dog. And as a good brown boy, I bargained with him. My mother would be very proud. I got that dog for $25 from him. It's a great deal. The issue was I then walked into Safeway to try to get my sandwich, and they kicked me out because I had a dog. And obviously it wasn't a service dog, right? Or it could have been when you hear the rest of the story. So I walk back to school. I walk up the stairs, walk into class, and within 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, I had 10 dates. I said, this is the future. This is my calling. And so I thought to myself, okay, I just got 10 dates here with this puppy. Maybe I should go to an animal shelter, and there's probably all of these super young, attractive, fun people volunteering at these places. I'll get a ton of dates over there. So I went to a local animal shelter, applied, turned in an application, got called 2 weeks later. They told me to come over and come to an interview. And I was like, wow, these places are strict. They want me to come for an interview to volunteer. They put me in a room. They asked me a ton of questions, which I had no idea the answers to. But they said, Bobby, use whatever resources you have. We're going to lock this door. We'll be back in 10 minutes and hopefully do a great job. So they said, use whatever resources you have. And guess what just came out that year? The Apple iPhone. So as they walked out the door, I pulled out my iPhone. I Googled every single one of those answers. Was done in 4 minutes. They walked back into the room. They're like, you know what feline leukemia is? I'm like, yeah, that stuff's horrible. And they're like, you can name 15 dog breeds. I'm like, duh. It's like, who can't? Little did I know, I actually did not apply for a volunteering position. I applied for a paid position at an animal shelter. So they called me back 2 weeks later and said, hey, Bobby, we'd love your energy. We know you probably don't actually know that much about animals, but we'd love to offer you a job anyway. So I was like, all right, well, I was going to go work at Macy's. I might as well work with puppies, right? Because perception then was, I'd never been to a shelter, was we're going to get to hang out, play with dogs, and have a lot of fun, right? Best life ever. The first day that I went to that shelter, I was overdressed and underqualified, but I walked in, and the first job that I had to do was walk to the kennels, and I just saw a bunch of red cards, and I said, hey, what are all these red cards? And they're like, well, Bobby, it's your first day, so we really want to get your feet wet. All of those cards are red cards because those animals are going to be euthanized today. They're on our euthanasia list. So your job is to walk them to the euthanasia room so the technicians can euthanize them, and then put them on a cart, and then take them to the freezer when we're done. And that was really the moment that my life changed, because growing up in Sacramento, I never considered myself a sheltered person, and it really shook me knowing that my community was doing such a poor job of taking care of our animals. At that point, I was a relinquishment counselor, so I would be doing a lot of communicating with people who are dropping off animals to try to keep them out. And it was a difficult time because although I wanted to be transparent, oftentimes with nonprofits back then, it wasn't the best thing because people aren't going to want to donate to places that are killing a lot of animals. I actually ended up getting fired from that job even though I thought I was doing a really good job. And I started a nonprofit working with kids doing literacy programs with dogs, which was really cool. But I missed working in shelters. So I sent an email to the city of Sacramento's Front Street Animal Shelter to some new director that had just come in. And I expected it was a Friday, maybe she'd email me back in a few days. She emailed me back within 20 minutes, and I said, hey, I'd love to come down and take some pictures for you. And she said, what are you doing right now? And I was like, I was gonna go to happy hour, but I can come hang out with you. I rolled up to the shelter, and we have this big gate, and I just hear this giant gate opening up. And I look, and there's nobody there. And I'm like, where is this person? And she's like, hi.
It was a Monday, we were closed.
Yeah, but that's sort of how our story started. Since then, I've been able to follow Gina through her amazing journey, and now our goal is really to tell you about how we've been able to inspire a lot of very dedicated people in our community to invest time into something that we believe in.
I think an important piece of this message is that he said, I would like to volunteer. I think I can help you take better pictures and improve your social media following. I didn't know this kid from Adam, but he was adorable and he was free, right? I said, sure. So he became a volunteer, and then he became a contractor, and then the city of Sacramento saw his worth, and he became a city employee. And it all started with a volunteer.
Strong words.
True story. Oh, wait. The old lady and the brown kid, what does that mean?
That's us.
That's us. We're writing a book.
It's called The Old Lady and the Brown Kid,
A Shelter Revolution.
Yeah.
So when it publishes, we'll bring it to the next conference. I say that all the time because I'm old, not terribly old, but old. And I think if you're smart, you will surround yourself by this generation, because he taught me how to have an Instagram handle, which, by the way, my real name in my real life is Gina Barbato, and my Instagram handle is on there, and there's Bobby Man, and you can follow both of us if you want to be friends. Okay, so what we're going to do today is try to develop, show you how to develop a winning volunteer program, extraordinary volunteer culture, rather, and some goals. We want you to become fearless. That topic keeps coming back up again. Untuck your capes. Everybody in animal welfare has a cape, usually tucked into your underwear. Pull it out and become fearless. We're going to explore some volunteer opportunities and talk about how to sustain a large volunteer program. And we do have a large program. I think you saw that with the numbers I shared earlier. We'd like to send you home with some turnkey. We have some exclusively managed volunteer programs that have nothing to do with city staff involvement. Granted, there's oversight, but they do all the work, and actually most of the programs they develop themselves.
And I love this picture because this was actually at our recent Pause to Party Gala. We did something called Keys to the Kennel, where every person bought a key for $100. And the winner that unlocked that kennel got $5,000 cash in a dog bowl. So that is Gina Knepp handing a woman $5,000 cash in a dog bowl.
So, what is the definition of a volunteer? And I just got this out of the regular dictionary, and I won't read them all, but it's a person who works for an organization without being paid. Bobby, in his infinite wisdom, decided to check. Go ahead, Bobby.
UrbanDictionary.com. And let's be real. I mean, oftentimes when we are grinding, working so hard with a vested mission, we know what we're doing. People are getting in the way. We don't want to train people because it only takes longer to train them and then they leave. Sounds like a very dysfunctional relationship. But it says an unpaid, well-intended, unreliable worker. When the game came on TV, all the volunteers left the job to watch it. And I think oftentimes this is sort of the feeling that we get because there is really a sense of fear, right? Sometimes we take so much pride in the work that we do and we're so invested in it that it can be scary to let go, right? I mean, it's our family, it's our people, it's our pride, and letting someone new into that tribe can be a little tough, especially when they have a lot of opinions, especially when they're really smart or energetic, and it's really about, like Gina said, untucking that cape, taking away the fear and trusting people. So this is why we thought this was really good.
So that's last year's volunteer hours, and the highest month, and you can tell what's happening during May, June, July, and August is kitten season. before I forget, we put 4,500 animals every year. We put 45, thank you, Kelly, 4,500 animals into foster care annually. That's 40% of our intake. And we couldn't have the nice other chart if we didn't do those things and if we didn't trust people to help us take care of the animals.
Absolutely. And I think another important part about that is just the sheer volume of people that are invested in volunteering for our organization. And a lot of people often ask, how do you accomplish this? And it's done every day. It's done through social media. It's done through public relations. It's done through every person that walks through your door, which we'll talk about a little later. We, as a shelter, have 3,000 people that are registered in our system as volunteers. But what's really remarkable about these numbers, it's about a little over 10% of them that really do the heavy lifting, that are our day in, day out, dedicated, like family volunteers. So, it's not a million people doing this. It's close to 300 people who just live and breathe Front Street, and I think that is attainable by anybody in this room.
And improvements in our shelter when it comes to not just life-saving, but fundraising, community perception, reputation. Somebody said reputation earlier today, and that really stuck with me. Our volunteer base and their support of what we do and their respect of what we do has a direct correlation to life-saving, period. And I would challenge, I'd like to see if there's an organization out there that has made such dramatic change without the help of people in their community. I don't know that that's possible. This is so tiny, Bobby. You expect me to be able to see the letters?
There's really big words on your left.
I can't turn around. I can't turn my back to the audience. We thought it would be interesting to, and I don't expect you to be able to read it, and I'm not going to certainly read it all, but what do volunteers do in real life? And I said earlier, they're a lot smarter than I am in most cases. We have a bank vice president. I can't even balance my checkbook. I have a bank vice president helping me. We have lawyers, anesthesiologists, nurses, bartenders, tattoo artists, lobbyists, people that are unemployed. We have high school students. We have, what else do we have? Oh, it's all on here, right here, right?
We have all walks of life. And I think what
life.
This really goes to show is, public perception has always been something. What is the type of person that's going to walk through your doors? Is it that retired person who's been wanting to volunteer at a shelter forever, and they're just going to come in and be grouchy and want to tell you everything's wrong and pick up after yourself and you're not doing this right or that right? No, absolutely not. It's not the case. I mean, if you really look at it, and we did a survey to see ages and different job fields that people are in, and it's astonishing how young and energetic and positive and motivated and educated a lot of these people are that are donating their time. And mind you, these veterinarians, they're not there fixing animals. A lot of them are doing off-site adoption events for us. A lot of them are marketing people, are in there cleaning kennels, because although you want to obviously learn about people and see what they're good at and give an opportunity to be great in that aspect for your organization, sometimes people just want to come clean poop. It's true, right? If you're doing marketing all day, the last thing that you probably want to do is do a little bit more marketing. You might be good at it, but sometimes you just want to just shut it off and hang out with some people and walk some dogs, and all of those things are okay too. But the important part is about investing in these people, learning about them, giving them the opportunity to do great things, and then obviously asking for their support when you know that they're great at certain things.
And trusting them. There seems to be this mistrust of those other people outside of animal welfare, and they're just like us.
Well, yeah, and it really started off like that with our organization as well. When there were a lot of people wanting to invest energy into our shelter, it takes time and resources to train people, which we'll get into in a little bit. But the one thing that you can do is the day they get there, hand them a pooper scooper or show them how to wash dishes or do a little laundry. And some of our staff were actually very intimidated by that. They've been doing this their whole lives. They never had that sort of support before. And there was a time in Gina's career where a lot of them were fearful of losing their jobs. And when you have so many people wanting to do the work that they're already doing, sometimes it can be a little intimidating. And I think it took a while for us to develop that culture where people felt parallel instead of better or worse than each other. And a lot of that has to just do with leadership and making sure that you're putting the right people in the right places.
Right. We certainly don't have that now. There was a real cultural shift in the last 7 years on staff perception and views of volunteers. And Bobby's right. In the beginning, it was very divided. And they weren't united, they weren't one team. And today it's remarkably different. If we don't have enough volunteer help, they all start complaining. Where are the volunteers? We use a software system, and the supervisor of the day runs who's coming in and what jobs they're going to be doing. And they're all dashing over to look who's going to be my kennel partner today, who's going to help me do X, Y, or Z. And I think I made that really clear earlier. I'm not risk averse, and I don't think there's any job in the shelter that another person in the rural community can't do, period. And we'll tell you what they can't do, and it's really one thing. But you want to talk about Robert real quick?
Yeah, sure. Another cool part of it now is, before we used to have our volunteer appreciation parties and then our staff appreciation parties, now the thing that everybody looks forward to at the end of our year is we do a staff and volunteer appreciation party. And everyone really does feel like a family, which is exciting. So Robert is a great story. Robert was a gentleman who adopted a dog from the Front Street Animal Shelter last year. Very educated man, has a master's degree. He and his partner both had great careers, wanted to adopt a dog from us at the perfect time in their life. 2 months later, Robert was laid off. He was unable to find a job. At the same time, he was actually evicted from his house because of rising rates and rent. And he found himself to be homeless. So he adopted this dog from us, was trying to look for transitional housing, but nobody would allow this 80-pound pit bull into any of his transitional housing. So what Robert opted to do instead was sleep in his car with his partner and his dog through the winter for a couple weeks, which he said is what actually kept him warm on a lot of those cold nights. He came back to the Front Street Animal Shelter, and he said, I don't know what to do. I have to give up my dog. I would like the ability for someone to foster this dog, at least till my partner and I can get back on our feet. What we did is we used it as an opportunity to tell a story. And it wasn't just about Robert, and it wasn't just about the dog. It was about a missing link between that entry-level barrier of homelessness, right? People who have disabilities, people who have mental illness, people who are retired from the military. There was lots of great resources. But for a guy who had a master's degree that was just out on his luck, because let's be real, a lot of us are, a couple paychecks away from being homeless. There wasn't a lot of support. So we told his story. Because of that, our amazing Facebook page, which now has about 175,000 followers, asked for us to build a U-Caring platform. Within a day, we raised $5,000 for him, and a woman actually donated her.
A woman in Arizona who owns a home in West Sacramento called me and said, I would like to offer my home up for rent. All utilities included, gardener. It's a nice house too, fully furnished, $1,000 a month. So we were able to do first, last, security, plus some extras for food and such. And they are still living there.
They're still living there. And the beauty of that is that, Robert, not coming to the shelter wanting to be a volunteer, he was coming for support, felt the support from our volunteers in our system. And because of that, he is now an ambassador for people who are transitioning through homelessness. And he is actually fostering dogs in that house for people who are in the exact same situation he was 3 months before. So it really just goes to show you don't know really the face of what a potential volunteer can be. And it could be someone who does come in for help. We have one woman who uses our food bank program, which is a supplemental aid we use for people who can't afford pet food. And she is very prideful, and she says, I'm not taking anything for free. So she takes the food, and every week she sweeps up outside of the shelter before we open our doors to make sure our shelter's clean outside. And she's one of our loyal volunteers. And it all started from someone needing a hand and then paying it forward. So always keeping an open eye for that.
Yeah. We have volunteers from all walks of life. Oh my gosh, from age 12 to, how old is Bev? 89 or something? Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see Bev later. She's amazing.
You will see Bev later.
So this is a little bit of our tribe. So a couple of things that we really wanted to talk about. So obviously we have our staff and volunteers up in the morning. That was on top left was Thanksgiving morning. Gina was out there getting her hair dirty and her hands dirty, cleaning kennels with the staff and volunteers. And it's really amazing to see the type of leadership that's in animal welfare these days. It's, people are out in the kennels getting to know people. And if you are an administrator, and I get it, we all talk about work balance and we all have a ton of stuff to do, and we're having to meet with boards, we're having to have, financial responsibilities and audits and all of these things. But if your volunteers don't know who you are as a leader, then they're not going to be invested in your mission, right? And we'll talk a little bit about what a volunteer coordinator really is in a little bit. But we do, in fact, have ballerinas that volunteer for us. There's Gina selling beer at a beer garden. And this is really important as well. This is an adoption line. So we had a call to action when our shelter was very full. We had around 600 people show up at our doors before they opened to adopt. And the thing to always remember, and Gina can touch on this a little more, is that you never want to miss an opportunity to recruit a volunteer.
Every single one of those people that has a conversation with your staff should be asked if they're interested in volunteering. Can I tell you about our foster program? Don't just rely on a flyer or a pamphlet in a plastic holder on your wall. You got to talk to people about that. Another thing I always tell my staff is you never know when our heiress is going to walk through that front door. There was this old guy who came in, it was like Christmas before last, I don't remember, and he had the grumpiest face known to mankind, and he was gruff, and he came up to the front counter and he wanted to talk to the manager. So my customer service team, someone comes and says this to me, and you never know if you're going to get shot in animal welfare, right? Because I'm always really worried someone's going to kill me. So I go to the front counter, and he says, I want to talk to you in your office. I want to speak to you in private. And I kind of looked at him up and down, and I could take him. I took him in my office, and he just had one of those faces, right? He looked grumpy, but he wasn't. And he said he had read an article that had been written about me, and I had had thyroid cancer, and so did he. He doesn't live in our jurisdiction, but he did his research, and he wanted to just write me a check. And every Christmas, he comes in and gives me $1,000. He was just a grumpy man at the counter. You never know. You just don't know. I was going to say something else. Bobby touched on it. I know the names of a vast majority of our volunteers. Several of them, as a matter of fact, have become personal friends and do come to my house for dinner. Several of them were invited to my daughter's weddings. And I've never kind of gotten to do this in my other jobs because I didn't have volunteers. But I've met some of the most wonderful, cool people that I call friends. But I know their names. They can walk into my office. I'm not tucked away. They can get to me. And I think that that's they need to feel connected to whoever's in charge. And I know it's really hard to do. But people want to help the animals, but they're also loyal to the human beings in that organization. So if you have not yet done that, make it a mission to go memorize those names and get to know these folks and find out what they do in real life. Move.
Please.
He's telling me what to do now.
Just another quick shot of some of our volunteers. So Patrick Harbison is a great PR professional. You're going to see a lot of beer in our stuff because we sell a lot of beer at Front Street. We run a lot of beer gardens. We do a lot of brew fests. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, it makes people happy, and when they're sad, they want to drink, and either way, they want to come play with puppies. So it all works out really well. But a cool story. So this is actually in the corner is one of our city attorneys who actually fostered and adopted a dog from us. So we're even looking internally, right? It's other people in other areas of the city that maybe want to break from what they're doing and use those resources for the government agencies that are here. You know, we have the ability to email tons of people, so use that. A great relationship we have is with Elk Grove Subaru. This is Vince Bloom. They call him the big guy. His wife walked into our shelter maybe about 3 years ago with a kitten that she had found, and the kitten was ill, and she wasn't from our jurisdiction, but you can tell that she was a compassionate person that needed some support. She didn't want us to do a lot for her just to make sure the kitten was okay, and she wanted to learn about our fostering program. Well, it was a busy day. We were probably taking in close to 60 animals already. Our shelter was very full. We all had meetings to get to. The shelter was not clean, but there was an opportunity to speak to someone who was invested in an animal in our community. So we took her aside. We expedited her through the foster program, gave this kitten some vaccines, sent it home with her. Kitten survived. She ended up adopting the kitten. 2 weeks later, she said, hey, I want you to come meet my husband at his car dealership. Had us come to Elk Grove Subaru. We have now become one of their Drive for Love campaign partners. They've given us over $30,000 in the last 3 years, all because we were willing to invest a little bit of time into a person that wanted to help an animal. And I think oftentimes we do, and you know, Suzanne touched on this as well, get so invested in policy And so, okay, well, here's the flyer, ma'am. I know you're interested in keeping this kitten, but our foster program orientation's in 2 weeks, so make sure you come on a Saturday, which is probably the one day that you have off that you get to spend with your family when you should be doing groceries and washing your car. But come over here, and we're going to spend an hour and a half talking about something that we can talk to you in 5 minutes about. It happens all the time. Here's what I ask people. Are you responsible? They're like, yeah. Do you want to help this animal? Yeah, that's why I'm here. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Sign this form. Here's this stuff. Call us in the morning. And it works, you know?
I think an important thing to mention about Patrick Harbison, he's the guy with the beanie and the dog having a beer. Patrick and I have known each other for a long time, long before I came to Front Street. We sat on an alumni board for my daughter's high school together and love each other. And then I went to Front Street. And what did he do? He followed me there. He's one of the biggest influencers in Sacramento, if you know what an influencer is, and one of the biggest Pied Pipers in PR and marketing. And he thinks we're chill. So that's golden. It's all, you know, and I don't think I said it earlier or yet. It's all about relationships. If you don't believe me, don't have any. So volunteer math is a little different than calculus, and I did mention this earlier. But this information, if you don't have a volunteer coordinator, or you don't have the right volunteer coordinator, or any kind of budget for your volunteer program, this kind of data is it resonates with the bean counters, the finance director, okay? According to the independent sector, right, or in 2017 anyway, a volunteer hour was $24.14 if you were to pay them with benefits, et cetera. So our volunteers gave us, and you know the number, over 109,000, which is worth $2.6 million, 54 additional employees. Suzanne mentioned that she got money and our budget revenue increases in the downturn of an economy because of performance. So when I got to Front Street, the budget was a little over $3 million with 31 employees. 7 years, fast forward, I think we're at $5.5 million and I have 54 employees, or 53, I can't remember, I'm old. When no one else in the city got additional staff, we got 9. That's a lot of FTE in the downturn of the economy, because our city manager and the elected officials were paying attention to what we were doing, because we are out there.
We are. We're doing
out there
150 outreach events annually, and I think a great part about these numbers as well is, you know, you make that strong push, you develop that volunteer core, and you're really able to show your cities what you can do with the additional staffing, right? So yes, this says 54 additional staff members. Well, you know, sustainability is its own thing. How do you continue to sustain the success that you've made? Because when you're progressing, then, you know, they're going to say try your best, right? Do what you can. But when you get from 20, 30 to 40 to 80 to 85%, then they have to think, okay, well, now this is a community expectation.
Yeah.
And
we changed the expectation in Sacramento, I think. Public perception and expectation. We can never go backwards, and our elected officials know that. They're very worried about my retirement.
People would be mad if we got worse. Okay, let's keep rolling.
It can't get
we got
worse.
like 26 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so people ask how we're able to do this. And the reason is because we have 54 volunteer coordinators at our shelter. It doesn't
really.
Yeah, not like actually 54. We have 54 staff members at our shelter. One of them has the job title of volunteer coordinator. And if you look at volunteer coordinator standards of America, they say you should have one volunteer coordinator managing 100 volunteers to do it adequately. Well, you know what? We have 54 of them, because every relationship you have with every staff and every volunteer is an important one.
You keep me up till 4 in the morning. You got me thinking of you. Every minute, every hour I keep falling. When I know that you feel it too. I can get no sleep. You got what I need when I got you next to me. I'm staying up for love, 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 love. I can't get enough, nah, 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 touch. I can't get enough, 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 enough. Staying up for love, 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 love. I can't get enough, 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 enough. Waiting for the moment we can touch. I can't get enough, 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 enough. Staying up for love. Staying up for love. So whisper in my ear when you come in, and tell me you're in the mood. Baby, you don't need to give me no warning. The only thing I want is you. I can get no sleep. You got what I need when I got you next to me. I'm staying up for love, 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 love.